Hey everyone, it is Cynics again, and I'm back for part 2 of our flying vehicle design lab. So this thumbnail may look unfamiliar, and that's because surprisingly you guys chose thumbnail 11, which I didn't think was that interesting personally, but that's okay. Once again, you guys have surprised me, and that's good because it gets me to try to figure out new designs that I possibly wouldn't have done otherwise. So the other thing about thumbnail 11 was that it was directly from the front of the vehicle. So that doesn't really work well for doing an actual speed paint or showing off the design. So I tried to convert it into a 3/4 view, and that's why this is different. But I tried to keep the proportions the same, and obviously since I didn't have any side view, I just kind of guessed at what I thought might be going on. But overall, the design is kind of, I don't know, I think it's flawed in some ways because of the top wing mainly. But I had to keep that in there, and there's probably better ways I could have done it. Maybe brought the whole thing back more, make it less vertical. I'm not really sure. But I'll talk about more about I'll talk more about that later. And for now, I'll talk about the actual rendering that's going on. So you notice it's all in grayscale, and I don't normally do this, but I thought it would be interesting just to kind of test myself if I could do the rendering, kind of render it out in all grayscale, and then just color it with a colorized layer, seeing how accurate my grayscale would be and how well it would hold up to just getting some color over it. So it's one way to do things, and some people like to do things that way, always working with grayscale and then adding color. It sometimes creates a weird look in your art, and I don't recommend it. I just kind of wanted to try to see if how it would work, but there's a couple reasons I don't recommend it, and I think the main thing is it gets hard to really control your colors and throw in a lot of different hue variations when you actually get to trying to throw in color, because you already have your shading all done, and it kind of encourages you to be very flat with your color and not be messing around with minor hue variations and things. So I also had this like gray bluish background here, which I later get rid of. But yeah, I don't know why I put that on there. I was actually thinking of doing like a actual background. Maybe this thing's flying over the ocean or something. That's what I was thinking I would try, but I decided that was kind of too distracting and it was taking away from trying to just do the design itself. So, let's see. I'm kind of happy with the cockpit area. Um, and I guess I'll talk a bit about design and what makes good design and bad design, because that was asked, and that's actually a really good question, whether design theory is like a subjective thing or if there's some objective reasoning behind what makes a good design. And I'm going to say that it's actually an objective thing. Now, style is a separate thing, and style is subjective, but good design is something that's kind of tangible, but it's very hard to sum up what exactly it is that makes a design good. And there's kind of a lot of factors, things like balance, things like a balance both in the weight of something and just how it looks design-wise, not being too busy and stuff like that, and like cohesive, that it feels like it all kind of goes together in a basic way, not like it's clashing with itself, and just kind of simplicity, an interesting silhouette and stuff like that. And once again, that's kind of all very vague and doesn't really make sense, but uh, when I'm like faced with a question like that, or like when I'm trying to answer it for myself, like what is good design, or what are the keys to a good design, like in an objective sense, usually I like to kind of look at other things like fashion design or interior design, something that isn't painting, and I like to see what they consider good design, like what are the elements that make a design, because those elements apply to everything. So things like maybe you're looking in fashion designing, things um, like patterns and not clashing with stuff and not being too busy, which is very important in fashion design, not being too busy, stuff like that. And you don't definitely don't want to be too busy with any design and art. But yeah, I'm actually a big fan of like Project Runway and stuff like that. That's my secret shame. I love that show. And I think that shows like that, like any show, is pretty helpful. Like you can learn a lot about design by watching, people design clothes or people design rooms, like interior design stuff. It's all useful and it's all kind of, I don't know. You have to look for your inspiration and not inspiration, but you have to look for the keys that can make you a better artist and what you can apply to art. Take it from that stuff. So I haven't talked about the painting in a while, and look, it's all red now and crazy. And actually, doesn't this look like a crawfish? I think it was at some point when I started doing the red, I was like, wow, this thing, it looks like a crawfish. So I'm just gonna call it, that's my nickname for this piece. It's the crawfish plane. Um, and yeah, I think the red's okay. I just wanted to do red because I didn't have much red stuff in my gallery. But there was a small cut about 30 seconds ago where I kind of took a step back because I was kind of messing with it for a while, and it's always important if you can take a step back from the art, go eat, go have a drink, go do something else, because then you'll come back and you can really notice things that were poor about the design or things that weren't working. There was like the area behind the tail at the top of the plane, which I didn't think was working, and just the area behind the cockpit, or just like the lower side behind the wings, it was very kind of, it felt like it was missing something, so I put in a structure back there, like a something like a tail, but not really, just something that goes back in that direction, so it feels a little more balanced in that direction. And just kind of minor adjustments like that. So, um, the design is kind of boring, and I mentioned before that I don't like how the tail looks and stuff like that. So I definitely tried to save the design with stuff like the cockpit, which I think is it's pretty interesting. It's That's always kind of a place where you can get a lot of kind of interesting shapes and kind of geometry going on. Obviously, you don't just want to do a cockpit that's, round and simple like a dome or something boring, because you're missing a lot of opportunity to really kind of experiment with shape and design and make something that's more iconic and that'll like make this design stand out more. So once again, like in a lot of my designs, there's a lot of kind of exposed parts, exposed mechanical parts to the design. You can see there's like a lot of paneling that isn't there or that's not meant to be there, and there's like loose parts hanging around, especially in the back and under the nose. So I was just kind of trying to detail those without detailing them too much, just the illusion that there's detail there. Maybe there's like some kind of radar sensors there or whatever. You can see at this point I tried to throw in some lights just because I thought it would be fun to have, some lighting. It's always fun to have lighting, especially in a thing like this, because obviously if it was a real thing, it would have some kind of lighting somewhere. So it's nice to throw that in. It makes it more believable. It makes it feel more realistic, and it lets you kind of throw in those cheap gimmicks like glow brush, which I'll do later on to make it really feel a lot more detailed than it is. So yeah, it's like this head of the crawfish part back there behind the tail, and I think I got rid of that later on, but it's okay. I was just, I don't know. I'm not just not happy with the top of this thing. There are elements of this piece that I like the kind of front and the bottom and the wings across the side, and even those little kind of hover pods are what I'll call them, the little hover pods on the side, like the fans that give some lift. But the top is kind of weak, and I think if I was gonna like submit this or try to make this into like a design that I was really proud of, I'd rework that completely. Probably knock off the top wing, maybe bring the design back more so it's more balanced. It might even look okay if just there was no top wing, no top part. It was just kind of more flat up there. But obviously, because that was part of the thumbnail, I had to throw in something up there. But maybe it's interesting, maybe it's unique. I don't know. So once again, kind of putting panel lines here and there. That's something that's good to do because it defines the form, for one thing. And it makes it look more detailed and gives it more scale. It makes it look bigger and bulkier when you have like little panel, like cuts in the panel. You can see like these breaks in the panel lines and stuff like that. That really makes something seem bigger versus if it didn't have any of those, it might just look like a little plastic toy or something. So those things are helpful, but I would say the main use for them is for defining the form because you can see like on that back piece, and I'll just call it the tail of the plane, that tan kind of structure back there. I used the curved lines to really show the shape of it and stuff like that. So working on this top wing a little bit, I didn't really do anything interesting with it, just kind of keeping it simple. I brought on a little bit more of an orangish tone for the highlights because it was very monochromatic, obviously, because I just used a color layer to fill in the red. So I tried to mix it up a little, but still, yeah, I don't know. Using a color layer is it's not really my thing. I don't think I'll do that much in the future, but who knows? Maybe I'll figure out a better method for doing it. Whew, that's a lot of talking. So let's see where we're at now. I kind of got sidetracked from my whole spiel about designing and objective design theory and stuff like that. But yeah, once again, like I think it's great to watch shows like Project Runway, and like those HGTV shows. It's fun, it's silly, and but you can learn a lot. There's always a learning experience anywhere you look. So here I am experimenting with the glow brush, and you can see I lit up those lights on the front, and they look a lot better now. Kind of messing with the colors a little bit. It was a bit too highly saturated with the red. Trying to figure out if I can put any lights somewhere else. I tried some lighting up here because I feel like it was kind of implied in the thumbnail that there was like a circular lighting thing up here. But maybe not. I actually don't know about that circle up there. I feel like it was slightly out of perspective this whole time, and I don't think it's really a good design element, but I don't know. So I guess I'm done with that piece, and I don't know if I got to talk about everything I wanted to, but you can see I'm throwing in the thumbnail here just to kind of complete the composition. I'll throw that on the piece. Just to kind of give you like a multiple angle type thing, show where the design came from, show where it went. And here I'm writing to some like little lines. I tried using like text to write in like crawfish, give it some title, give it some descriptors, but like what usually happens, I decided that the text didn't look that great, so I'll just draw it by hand, and things usually look better when you do them by hand, especially text and stuff. Anytime you can do it by hand, you might as well. It'll just look better. It has more personality and stuff like that. So that's the final piece. You can see me signing my name. That's the trick to how I sign my name. I draw the S on one side, the X on the other, the N in the middle, and then two eyes. But anyway, I hope this was somewhat helpful. I don't know if I got to talk about everything, but once again, there will always be more design labs and chances for me to talk about stuff. And hopefully watching the method helped you think of some new ideas and stuff like that. So, one last thing, I would like everyone or anyone, if you want to leave a comment, I would love to hear some recommendations on what you would like to see a Design Lab episode about. Obviously, if it was up to me, we'd just be going through mechs and stuff like that, and I always want to draw like mechanical stuff, and I'd be doing like 3-leg mech the next week, and then 4-leg mech the next week, and 5-leg mech, and just keep going until I run out of legs, and then I'd start all over again. But that's probably kind of boring, and I'm not getting out of my comfort zone because obviously I'm picking them myself. So I would like you guys to give me some recommendations, and they can be anything, a character, an environment, just any subject, a creature even. I don't do many creatures, so that might be good. Anything you might want to see, and I'd be happy to take a look at those and probably take some of those and make episodes.